And I'm here hopefully today with my colleague Igor. I think Igor's having a few problems with the video, but we'll get there. So we're going to be looking more in depth the topic that I covered in brief a month ago, and that is how do we look at the order affiliation in Google Analytics. So while Igor's getting himself set up, let me just explain what we mean by order affiliation. Now, not to be confused with attribution or revenue affiliation. Right, so order affiliation is a field in Google Analytics which says kind of effectively what sales channel it's come from. And what Littledata does is pass into that the tags from the Shopify order, which typically give us information about what app or process has created that order if it's not a standard Shopify checkout order. And what you'll see if you go and have just share my screen and we'll have a look at the docs is that we have in our docs a how it works, Google Analytics 4, and so for all of these purchase events, we send through a specific affiliation. So here we go, affiliation. Affiliation is a common separated list of order tags. So if it's just from the Shopify checkout, it will come as affiliation Shopify. If it's from other channels, it'll have other tags. So what we're going to do today is look at how you can use this affiliation in reports and audiences. Igor, have you managed to sort out the video, or perhaps try just sharing the screen?
It seems to be looking good. Give me just a second to re-enable the camera.
So yeah, why would you need this? Affiliation is really useful for brands that have, maybe you want to look at a recurring order specifically. That's one of the things we're going to look at today. You might want to look at other sales channels, Amazon being a biggie. You might want to look at orders that are specifically driven by different upsell apps or other, maybe native mobile apps. All of these things are things you can spit out with the order affiliation. Igor, welcome to the...
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So my name is Igor. I'm well, let's say half developer, half a marketer. Currently covering the integrations and custom setups for some of the clients. So what I'll be showing you today with Ed is, as Ed mentioned, a way to actually to dig through the Google Analytics 4 reports in order to get additional data that Littledata provides. As a good example of that is the affiliation custom dimension within the GA4, where we actually store the type of the order. So let me share my screen and then we can kick it off. Hopefully this will work. Yeah, thank you, Safari. Yeah, the always.
You can always ping with a link, and I'll share it from my end.
Yeah, give me a second. I'll just refresh the screen.
Okay, but so while Igor's doing that, let me just explain a little bit first of all about how you might set up this dimension. So if we go to our Google Analytics, and we're going to just look at our merchandise store here, these user properties, event properties, which affiliation is, unfortunately not usable out of the box in the reporting. What you have to do is go to admin, go to custom definitions here, and you'll see we have a dimension name called affiliation. So what we can do is create a custom dimension based off what Google calls an event parameter. So this is already sent with all the events from Littledata. It won't necessarily be sent with every e-commerce integration, so do check if it's not there. And importantly, it is event scope. So you need to select event scope, select from the drop-down affiliation, and then when you create an exploration, or in fact, let's just pick up the standard e-commerce report. We can use it in reporting. So if we want to go to reports, monetization, e-commerce purchases, and I could then, for example, add a filter here, select affiliation, which is under custom, and then, as I said, this we could say, right, contains or contains recurring, for example, if we want to do that. So you'll only see it here in the custom dimensions if you've set up in the settings. That's my first tip. Okay, Igor, I think we have to add you back in, and then I think we also need to add your screen share there.
I think that you have my screen share. Should be.
You just need to put it onto the other window.
Yes, I think this should work. Let me know if you see G4.
You just need to zoom in a few clicks, I think.
All right.
Small device.
Looks better.
A few more.
All right.
Big screen. Yeah, that's better.
All right then. So what I did is I went into the standard traffic acquisition report. And this is one of our test properties where we are sending development and staging traffic. So it's not a live account, but still it has enough data for us to actually show what we are looking for in here. So what I did is I added a secondary dimension of the affiliation. But before doing that, let's actually take a step back. What I want to show you is how we need to do that.
Yeah.
So we
cover this, Igor, while you're off.
Yeah. Okay. So it's in the data collection, and then there's a custom dimension. All right. So then back to the report. So let's have a bigger time period then, and we will get, by default, we will get the channel grouping. What I like to do always is I switch to source medium, because the default channels oftentimes group something into unassigned, which should not be in there. And then I'm adding the affiliation as the secondary dimension. So what this gives us, and what you get with the Littledata data, is you get the information about the type of the order. In this case, this session was created by not set session and source and medium. I'll explain in more details what that means. But what we are focusing on is the affiliation, where we are seeing that this order was the subscription first order. And then we have another one, which was the subscription recurring order. So this gives us the ability to actually differentiate the audiences, and also to create let's say an audience where we will be tagging and targeting only the persons with a certain, let's say, characteristics. So in this case, we are looking for subscription first order, but we can as well do something like, let's say, somebody which was a part of an upsell, or somebody which was a part of a draft order. So what we can do with this, for starters, we have by default all of the reports in Google Analytics 4 include all of the affiliation. So unfortunately, in G4, we are not able to create separate views. As you remember from G3, we were able to create views with certain filters. This meant that we can create a certain view with the recurring orders filtered out. Why is that relevant? Because if we want to target by ads some certain audience, we are looking to actually target only the first orders or the one-time orders. Why? Because in there we have our buyers, and this one, the view with the recurring orders gives us the more of a purview into the lifetime value and the longer term ROI of a certain marketing channel. Yeah. But to get back to the story, so what we're looking to do here is we want to first determine if our reports should contain recurring orders or not. And the easiest way to do this is to create a filter where we add an affiliation, and then in here we set that we don't want to actually include the recurring orders. And then when we do something like this, we will effectively exclude all of the recurring orders. And as you can see, we will get the same effect of having a view of GA3 in GA4, which has only the first-time billing and one-time orders.
And Igor, is that types case sensitive? Do we need to get the case right for that?
Yes, it is. Until recently, Google Analytics 4 didn't allow regex as well. But nowadays, we have also regex and partial regex.
Okay.
Have in mind that the typical regex with the pipe symbols and with all the special symbols that regex allows are not fully supported in GA4, which means that if you want to actually include multiple conditions, then you should be using the partial regex condition here for filtering. Now, what can we do with this? Well, besides actually having the reports created like this, what we can do is we can actually create a custom report, which we will have always in our left-hand side. We can do something like this. We can go into editing report and then add the same filter. What this will get us is a report which always has these filtered out. What we can do as well, we can rename the report. When we save it, it remains like that on our sidebar. So this time when we go in there, we have all of the recurring orders excluded, which is
I guess you can remember or name it carefully to say, it's easy for someone else.
Of course, yes, of course. But yes, of course, name it properly. But I just left it as is in this case so that we don't waste time on playing around with the names. And then also we can, if we want, we can as well in the dimensions, because this is not my favorite, right? So we can switch to session source medium as default. Then we can save the report. And then what we have in here is we have source medium as the default grouping dimension, and then we have the recurring orders excluded. So everything that we wanted to get from a GA3 view, a separate view for that. Okay. So what is also a cool thing that we can do with this, let's go into the explorations by building this report. What we can do, so now we have the same data in a custom report, right? So we have, as you can see, affiliation does not contain recurring. So when we do this, we will get only what we looked for. But let's play around a bit. Let's build a segment which we can actually afterwards import into Google Ads and use it for retargeting or something like that. So we can do, let's say, we can create a custom segment by following some certain conditions. We can use predefined templates based on what GA4 thinks is proper, or we can actually create a custom segment in here. Let's say a user segment which contains a condition which says affiliation is, so this is event scoped, have that in mind. We will return back to that information about the event scope because it's quite important for filtering out the users. And we will say in here contains recurring, oops. So, all right, so this is not giving us anything probably because
it's time range, it's over.
Yeah, probably it's time range. But anyway, in here in the summary, we would get recurring in here, and we would just click build an audience, and we would say what is the duration. We can actually do this.
Yeah. Just to recap what you've done there. So you've created an audience which includes all of the people who've had recurring, so all of the users in Google Analytics who've had any event with recurring order. So they might have
exactly
else, but they've also had a recurring order. So this would be a classic way of basically promoting maybe an additional product to your current subscriber base.
Basically upselling to the customers which have subscribed to your product and then do recurring orders.
And I guess if you do membership duration 30 days, you're maybe just selecting the ones that have at least paid within the last 30 days. If you do maximum limit, then you might also pick up people who haven't, who've churned but paid previously.
Maximum limit officially is, I think, 524 days or something like that. So 500-ish, basically about almost 2 years.
Yeah.
A year and a half, 2 years, but the minimum is 1 day. Yeah. So, and also you can play around with the audiences. You can create a new trigger so that actually it adds a user to the audience based on a certain event which happens, etc. But we won't get into those details.
Can we just do one more audience? Because I think for the brands, the other really useful one is like I want people who don't subscribe yet, and I want to promote subscribe, to a subscription. So how would I build an audience of people who've purchased but haven't subscribed yet?
Right. So those would be the reports which we just created, which is does not contain recurring,
but have purchase. So we also need to have and
yes,
event purchase.
Yes, exactly. So we have 111 users in here, and then what we would do additionally is we would say and event is purchase.
Yeah.
So we have 18% of all of the users. We have 75 sessions which are included in here, and then we can build an audience based on this. Now, have in mind, so let's say purchasers.
Not subscribing.
First time and one time.
Okay.
So first time and one time. Right. So when we do this, we can basically have a segment in here which is saved, and we are getting the same result as with this filter. What we can do then with this, we can click those 3 dots, and then we can go to edit and then build an audience out of this. Also, if I'm not mistaken, the segments can be shared. But what is more important is that you can also apply this segment to a standard report. So you can go in theory into, let's say, this report, and then you can say, give me not all of the users, but give me my audience, which I have created in here, which should be so not all of the users, but
yeah, I'm not sure how you actually add I know you can add a segment to the explorations, but I'm not sure how you add it to a standard report anymore. It's possibly that you have to share the segment first. Okay. Anyway,
yeah. Okay. Let's not waste time on that. So anyway, segments are generally available throughout the reports, but maybe they changed something in here. It doesn't matter. Anyway, to get back to the point with the affiliation being event-based, why is that very much relevant? Because we send affiliation parameters server-side as a part of the Littledata setup, and as a part of what Littledata does, basically, is we are sending part of the events on the from the front end and part of the events from the back end. Checkout events are being sent from the backend, and as part of the checkout, of course, there's a thank you page. So the thank you page, aka purchase, is actually an event which is sent from the server side and which contains the enhanced data, the enriched data, let's say, which comes from Shopify backend, which is not available in the front end. One of those parameters is the affiliation. and that parameter is tied only to the purchase event. What that effectively means is that you cannot create an audience which is tied to, let's say, begin checkout, because at this point, we don't have the information about you being a user which purchased, let's say, which made a one-time purchase or began his subscription. But what we could do potentially is, if you are a returning user and a returning buyer, we could filter out and play around with other events within the pre-purchase stage, because you are a user which is actually put into a certain audience which have been tagged as either a one-time buyer or a recurring buyer. So to just clarify once more, so affiliation is sent only on the event level and only with the event which is called purchase. So you can be using only affiliation in tie with the revenue and with the number of transactions and with the purchase event.
Got it. Yeah. So I mean, to summarize, you need to sort of, to use affiliation, you'd be looking at purchases or people who have purchased something. It only makes sense like that.
Yeah.
That's kind of, we're sort of out of time, Igor. So thanks for that. I guess the other thing I would say from my side is we as you correctly mentioned that Google Analytics doesn't allow you to filter stuff out of view level. So by default, all of the orders will be in there. One of the features of the latest launching the next couple of months is to enable you to select or filter out which orders you want to send. We understand, for example, some people might not want to see draft orders in Google Analytics, or they might not want to see orders from mobile apps or other sources in there. So one of the things because Google Analytics doesn't allow you to filter that out globally, so one of the features we'll be launching is to allow that sort of global filtering so that you never see them in any of your reports. But what we've done here today is show how you can sort of show, for example, recurring orders in some reports, but not others.
Yeah. So, for example, as just Ed said, so for example, and now we are actually returning to the beginning. So, why do we have not set in here? Well, exactly because of one of the benefits that Littledata provides. These not set session source and medium are originating from either users which are coming from recurring orders, or as a secondary option, they are coming from users which have actually blocked their tracking in their browsers. So when we start with our tracking, which is server-side from the checkout events, then we unfortunately have to create a dummy client ID tied to that certain user, which is why we don't have the source medium which the user began their session with on the front end. Yeah. So that's why not set is in here.
Thank you for explaining. Okay, great. That's all we have time for. Thanks for joining us, Igor. And thanks for explaining all about affiliation. As ever, if you have different questions and or other stuff you want coming out of this, you want to ask us, please do reach out to our support. If you ever want to demo a little later, happy to do that. So goodbye from me, goodbye from Igor, and we'll see you next week.
Yep. Thank you. Have a nice day.